This is the 201st episode of the Aging Well podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, here with my co-host, Corbin Bruton. In this milestone episode, we celebrate our guests and the lessons we have learned in this journey. We will share some of the products and lifestyle applications we have tried and how they have worked for our efforts to age well.
Dr. Armstrong, do you know what today's episode is?
Of course, this is episode 201.
I cannot believe it.
Believe it.
We've learned a lot, and I'm hoping that our listeners have as well.
I'm sure they have. And the question is, what of the things that we have learned are we implementing in our lives to help us age well?
Great question. I would actually have to go in through my top 4 favorite people that we've interviewed. I would have to say the Klinowskis, definitely focusing on sleep and prioritizing that. Dr. Farrow has really shown me what we put into our mouth and as it hits our stomach. Although pizza's delicious, the amount of stress that pizza can actually put on our body, it's been an interesting life change for me, cutting back on a lot of junk foods and getting more focused on natural foods. When I go grocery shopping now, I shop on the outside of the aisles. I would have to say Dr. Faree with her peptides and prioritizing proteins and the impact it can do on our bodies and the benefits of it. Now, the problem with that is obviously a lot of them are out of my price range, but still interested and I would like to try them. And one last one would be Larry and David on super aging. I just love that book. They talk about everything that we talk about.
So are you doing any of these things or are you just hoping to do them someday? You know, what's working for you that we've learned over the past years?
The thing that's been working for me is focusing and getting on a better sleep schedule and sleep hygiene, especially recently. And then obviously that window of eating, how it affects the sleep as well. I recently, probably within the last few weeks, stopped eating after 7 p.m. My sleep is night and day difference. I'm also prioritizing protein as my main source. I'll eat protein first, and then I'll eat either the carbs or the veggies or whatever, but I go for my protein first, and I'm feeling it. I feel much more alert, much more aware. And thanks to the Klinowskis, it's been a while, but I finally got it. Finally, after going back and forth with the Philips company, I just got a brand new CPAP machine. So I'm going to be utilizing that, and hopefully we'll see how much better my sleep's going to be.
Okay, so it's something you're actually doing and it's working for you.
Yes, it's working tremendously.
Well, for me, so look back, we're at our 201st episode. There are a lot of episodes. I can't even go back into probably the first 100 and pinpoint all of the many things that I've learned and been trying to implement. Some of those have been a little bit more us educating people on things that we've kind of already been doing. But man, the quality of the guests that we've been having in the last year has just been phenomenal. There's been so many things that I've learned and started to implement. You bring up the Klinowskis and several others that have really brought up sleep hygiene. So I think, you know, one thing that I've been working on that has really been helpful for me is focusing on my sleep hygiene. And part of that being, you know, going back to Dr. Farrow, I got myself a Garmin watch. I have issues with the Garmin watch. It doesn't keep a charge longer than about 2 nights for me. So I have to charge it every other day. Garmin, if you're listening, we need better battery life. I do like the feedback it gives me. I wake up in the morning, tap on it in my sleep, and it'll give me a sleep score. And I am still working, trying to figure out how to interpret my sleep score. But it also gives me a body battery, which is a little bit more relating to heart rate variability and how charged my body is, kind of where I am probably in my cortisol cycles. I find that the most helpful because sometimes it says, a long but not recovery sleep. It's a short but recovery sleep or long but not recoverable, whatever the terminology is. And then I look at my body battery, and my body battery is still very drained. And so I didn't get a really good sleep. But if I get a good restorative sleep, that body battery is charged pretty well up. I'm looking at what I'm doing that are helping me to improve on that sleep. And, one, and there's, several different products that I've had the opportunity to kind of try that I'll discuss today. But a couple of things that I'm doing that really have helped my sleep. One is I started taking sleep relief after we had Dr. John Neustadt from MBI. I've tried a few of their products, Belly Rescue, to get kind of my gut health restored. I think that helped me a little bit, but the sleep relief has been really good. Beyond just melatonin, it's melatonin plus some other products that are more time released. I find when I take that, I get a really good quality of sleep. I fall asleep. I take it about 45 minutes before my bedtime. I take it at about 8:15, try to take it as early as I can. By 9 o'clock, I'm really ready to be knocked out, right? Fall asleep pretty easily. I'm finding that I'm sleeping better through the night. I don't get up more than about 2 times to go to the bathroom or just wake up. It's really helped with my sleep. So that's something that is working for me and I'm going to continue to take. And another thing that I found interesting, we had Dr. Chevalier on early this year to talk about the benefits of grounding. And I haven't gotten a grounding mat or grounding sheet yet, but I have messed around with a cord that plugs into one of my outlets in the ground. And I'll just wear like a little TENS pad, one of those electrical stim pads on my shoulder when my shoulder was really bothering me. I'll run the grounding cord through it and ground that area of my body. It's really helped with the shoulder pain and it's helped me sleep better. I'm starting to recognize, and I'm still kind of monkeying with it, but I've noticed that when I don't have it on, I don't get quite the same quality of sleep. I'm really leaning into pushing my wife to say, let's get a, grounding sheet or, grounding pillow or mat for the bed that might help with that sleep quality more.
Can you just give a quick description of what grounding is? Like what the actual process? Because you say an electric thing over your heart, and I'm
Well,
thinking
it's not over my heart, but yeah. The listeners should go back and listen to all of our episodes as they're able to. I know 200 is quite a few episodes to listen to all of them, but I would love for everybody to get all of our episodes downloaded and listened to. The episode with Dr. Chevalier was episode 121, but grounding is basically just, you ground electrical currents. And so it's that current goes into the ground and kind of removes that charge from the body. And probably it'd be best for the listener to go to that episode to get a little bit more clarity as to what grounding is, because, Dr. Chevalier is one of the key experts in grounding. But there are different ways that we can do it. One way to ground is getting outside, walking barefoot in the grass or sand. That is one way to ground our bodies. It has been purported to have tremendous health benefits. We've disconnected from the ground by wearing shoes, living in concrete jungles and all that stuff. And so we can ground ourselves that way. There are mats that you can kind of put like under your hands on the keypad as you're working on the computer all day, or under your feet, kind of just sit barefoot at your computers if we're sitting and working all day. I was first introduced to it by our friend Jay, who we've mentioned a few times on the podcast. Jay started using a grounding mat at his feet in his bed and just was experiencing just tremendous benefits with the many health issues that he has. I really started looking into it, and that's when we reached out to Dr. Chevalier to come on the podcast. I'm finding some benefit from it, and maybe it's placebo effect. I don't know. I have only gone small scale because the pad I use is probably only about 2 inches in diameter. I'm curious if I use it more whole body, would it have a better effect? I don't know. But it does seem to help with my sleep.
I read somewhere that walking barefoot and grounding that way, like walking in the grass, significantly reduces anxiety, and it also, I read that it kind of balances your whole circadian rhythm throughout the day, and it just keeps this level of like cool, calm, tranquilness. I don't know. I thought that'd be really interesting for people that may have missed that episode for you to share. So thank you.
And then when you talk about harmony and balancing our electroactivity and our cycles, that's another thing that I've begun to adopt a little bit more. Some of our listeners might remember Craig Goldberg talking about vibration and meditation and his product In Harmony, which is sounds designed to help bring our body signals and energies into more harmony. I've been trying to use that more, particularly right before bedtime. I troubled my wife the other night because I left it on. I didn't realize it was going to go into the next, there's like different rhythms and I don't know, best way to term it is like songs that are played, but these particular episodes of this music and sound and just gentle, just rhythms of vibrational sounds that kind of play through I just play them through my iPhone, and I left that on, and she didn't want to wake me up to tell me that they were still playing as she was trying to sleep, and she didn't know what it was. Craig says he plays those in his house all day. I think you have an Alexa or something like that, and you just play it through that. Keeping it in the background is very soothing and helpful, allowing me to settle myself and calm myself at periods of the day when I start getting a little bit more anxious or antsy or just agitated, whatever it might be.
I personally believe that music is the second most powerful thing on this planet. I
What's
feel
the
like a lot
first?
of
Me?
people say it again.
What's the first?
No, I would say the first is love. Actually, love is the most powerful thing. The music's the second. Music, vibrations, things to that effect. I mean, through the ages, it's been a way to either put people in a better mood or calm people down or, get people really pumped up right before a sporting event. Music has a huge impact on people. If you watch a scary movie, what you're seeing isn't necessarily scary. It's the music that they have. Now, if you switch that scary music out with a tuba sound, it kind of becomes a little bit funny. It changes the whole atmosphere. I think we should be putting music on that makes us feel better.
Music can definitely help sync those circadian rhythms a little bit more. In the morning, you fire on the Rocky theme and Eye of the Tiger, the music that's going to get you more pumped up. But as we get closer to sleep, we have to start relaxing ourselves and listening to sounds and music that ease our bodies into that rhythm of sleep and recoverability.
Speaking of circadian rhythm, there was a farmer who discovered that the birds, when what he discovered was his plants, his flowers would kind of open up first thing in the morning when the birds would start chirping, and they would chirp and they would sing their songs at a certain level of frequency. And as he was playing around with different sounds of music, he realized that the same level of frequency was that of classical music. And so he's like, you know what? I'm just going to try this out. And he just started playing classical music over his crops. And they all started growing. And now at a lot of places in the Midwest, some of the farmers will actually do that to inspire growth in their plants. So there is a huge impact with the type of music that we're putting into our ears. And, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole with that as far as listening to encouraging sounds or positive things versus negative. So it does have an impact.
You're talking about chirping birds brought me back to a very fond, embarrassing memory. A number of years ago, I kept waking up at the exact same time every day to the chirping of these birds. And they would stop after about 10 minutes. And I was like, what is going on with these birds? I was trying to figure out what kind of birds they were. And then we traveled to Chicago and it happened again at the exact same time. I was like, wait a minute, something's going on. And I realized that I'd gotten a new phone and somehow an alarm was set to go off at a specific time. And the alarm was these birds chirping and it would shut off after it just kind of played its 10 minutes or so. And I was like totally embarrassed by that. So going back into sleep cycles, I think you mentioned nutrition and trying to eat better to get better sleep. One of the things I have begun to incorporate more from my conversation with Dr. Anton from Al Nutra is circadian fasting. We talked a lot about intermittent fasting and how most people, when they intermittent fast, they eat later at night and then they don't eat all day. And then, they have their whatever window of feeding. But what's more important with that window of feeding is that we stop eating generally somewhere between about 6:30, 7:30 at night, and then allow our bodies to be restoring through our sleep. So it's not disrupting our sleep. Our bodies are able to be utilizing the nutrients that we have put into the body. And we get up in the morning, we kind of delay our start to when we start eating again. And there's a much greater benefit to that. And that's where we get the greater benefits from more intermittent fasting. And so I thought that was very interesting and something I've been trying to do a lot more because we've had a tendency in our household to eat late. And I'm finding that I sleep better when I get an earlier meal and then I have time to relax before really going to bed.
So, like I said, I've been kind of experimenting with this, and it's night and day difference. If I have anything after 7, I don't feel like I had a good night's rest. And then, so if I can time my meal to where my last meal is at 5:30, where I fully have digested everything by 7, to me, that's perfect. If I get hungry, I just drink more water and just try and fight whatever those hunger cravings are. But again, ever since I started prioritizing protein, I really don't get those hunger cravings as I did when I would add more carbohydrates to my diet. And then speaking of carbohydrates, another thing that I've noticed with myself personally to help with my circadian rhythm and sleep is as the day moves forward, I'm doing less and less carbs. So if I do have carbs, I'll try and get it in the morning. But then as it gets closer to the evening, the less carbs I have, I feel like I sleep better. I don't know. I've always kind of theorized that I might have a slight gluten allergy, but I've never been tested for it. Every time I eat like wheat or starchy foods, I just feel kind of bloated and a little swollen, especially in the sinuses, almost as if I'm having a little allergic reaction to it. So to me, I just feel like the not eating after 7, but then also having your food fully digested by 7, it's like I said, it's night and day difference. And I feel like I wake up way more rested and rejuvenated.
I would contest that you're not fully digested by 7:30. I think you'd recall the idea that carbohydrates was probably something I taught you in physiology of exercise, where we want our carbohydrates to be associated with when we're the most active. And so, working on the morning, I don't know that I would say high carbohydrates first thing in the morning unless you're active, because we're coming off of a period where our muscle glycogen should be pretty well restored. But I'd say by midday is when you're probably going to have your biggest hit of carbohydrates and taper that off at the end of the day. One thing that really helped me, we've had 2 different approaches to fasting on the podcast recently. We had Dr. Anton from L Nutra and Dr. Christopher Rhodes from Mimeo Health. And, so the L Nutra approach, or Prolon, is the fasting mimicking diet where it's a 5-day diet. And they sent me the 5-day diet. I tried it and found it very beneficial. I feel like it reset my metabolism to some extent. I lost about 10 pounds in that 5 days. I've gained a few back, but I at least reset my set point about 5 pounds lighter after doing that. And I'm definitely not near as hungry anymore. And I think another thing it taught me was that when I'm hungry, I can have an herbal tea or drink fluid rather than eating. I would like to try the Mimeo Health. That's basically 2 tablets a day, I believe it is, that will cause your body to perceive that it is fasting, and you're supposed to get some of the same longevity benefits. I'd like to try that, just see how that feels for me. We did mention some of the expense of these things. I think Mimeo Health would be about $90, $100 a month, which, is kind of a little out of my budget, or at least justifying to my wife why I do it. But I might try and push for a little testing of that. The idea of fasting, particularly more of a fasting mimicking approach, is something I want to continue to try on a regular basis to keep aging well. Something else I tried, we recently had Dr. Patel on, and his product, he has a very novel technique for getting glutathione into the system. It's a transdermal, so it's his gluteral spray. They did send me a bottle of that. I tried that for a month, and I felt awesome on that. I'd spray morning and an evening. I kind of balance between spraying kind of on the abdomen near the liver, which they recommend, spraying on my bald head, and kind of working that into my scalp. And then also where I get some eczema on my arms, I was spraying it there. And I've noticed a change in the evenness of my skin color on my bald head, fewer age spots. Some of those were beginning to shrink. I actually feel like, and I don't know for certain because I didn't do any kind of pre or post, but I felt like afterwards I was seeing a few more hairs on my head. When you're as bald as me, a few more can really be beneficial. I think the biggest thing I felt was an energized clarity in my brain. I had the energy to do work, more clarity, more enthusiasm. I also felt better. I slept better overall energy throughout the day. I think glutathione spray is a little on the pricier side. It's about $110 for a month's supply. But certainly if somebody has health issues, it is worth trying. It's something I think I might do every 6 months to kind of get my glutathione levels, which is that master antioxidant, get those levels kind of restored because they do drop when we age. If I can't do it every month, doing it every 6 months or every 3 months, I think will have some pretty good benefits. And then in the meantime, I've started taking Glynac ET, which is a form of it's 3 components of glutathione are going to be lysine, cysteine, and glutamine. Glycine and cysteine are the 2 most critical components your body needs to make glutathione. And the ET is, I think it's ethyl ester, is a more absorbable form of it. And so from reading kind of Dr. Patel's book and some of the literature, certainly getting it through the skin is probably the most effective way to get your glutathione levels up. Orally, taking just glutathione is not effective, but getting those amino acid components into the body can have some positive benefit. And so I feel like that's kind of something I want to continue to do to help myself age well.
I wish I was part of that interview with Dr. Patel, but unfortunately, scheduling, I wasn't able to attend. I've been doing my own research with the glycine and NAC combination just because I kind of stumbled upon it, trying to figure out, as you know, I've had some issues with my liver, and that combination right there has been shown in literature to lower liver enzymes and clean out toxins. I was taking that combination for a while. It's interesting, they've removed the Gly-NAC combo, so you can't get the combo anymore. So I was just getting a little bottle of glycine and a bottle of NAC and combining them.
Curious why they've removed those, because you can still get the Glynac ET in several different forms.
Yeah.
I get that on Amazon.
I don't know. I go to supplement either GNC or Super Supplements, and which is the vitamin shop here in the Portland metro area. So, but they removed that combo. It's hard to come across that. So if you can find it online, definitely go for it. Especially if you're seeing a lot of benefits out of it. Why not?
I think especially as we age, it's something that's worth considering, just because it is such an important antioxidant. We don't think of it much. We think of vitamin C and some other antioxidants in our food. But one of the things that Dr. Patel really stressed is that, top priority is getting the components in your diet that are going to give you, the product so that your liver itself can make glutathione and keep those levels high. But when we're under a lot of stress, aging, or feeling under the weather, using the glutarol spray or taking Glynac ET can help maintain our glutathione levels. I think that's something I would encourage doing. We've had other longevity health span products discussed on the podcast this year with Matt Caberline. He really promotes the rapamycin, and I would love to try that. But again, it's a little pricier. And for me personally, I don't think I would get quite the same benefit that I would get out of that as I would with the glutathione, or just doing other lifestyle changes like exercising regularly, improving my cardiovascular, and doing those things. Any other supplements that you've kind of learned about on the podcast that you've opted to try or just really curious to try?
I have, obviously we talk a lot about creatine, and I really think everyone should be taking creatine. It's not just for bodybuilders. It's not just for athletes. There's a lot of literature out there that shows that it's good for brain health and an aging brain. I've been prioritizing my omegas as well. And I feel like that has been in the past something that I didn't really prioritize. And then once we started doing this podcast and we started bringing in the nutrition aspect of it, and we started talking about different hormones, and the omegas always seem to be brought up. So I started taking an omega supplement, a little fish oil one. I feel like the days that I don't take it, I feel a difference. I do feel more energetic throughout the day, just natural energy. I feel like I'm in a steady state of, okay, it's time to go. Let's go.
I don't find I see a tremendous difference, but I do have a fair amount of healthy oils in my diet, particularly like olive oil and avocado oil. But I did try Udo's Choice. We had Udo Erasmus on one of the earlier episodes this past year. His Omega 369 oil blend. It's a very interesting product. You have to keep it refrigerated, and the process of making it's probably one of the best quality sources of omega oils that you can get. You have to keep it refrigerated. But what I found I'd do with it, rather than putting butter on a bagel or on my toast in the morning, I would use that and kind of spread that on. Or I used it in my protein shakes. And not that I experienced a dramatic difference from it, but I just felt like, wow, the quality of this seems so much better than just some of the tablets I might buy that are a lot cheaper. I think one of the big things that I really garnered from this season's episodes about nutrition and supplements is the idea of quality. Dr. Neustadt talked a lot about, with the minerals that we are taking, they should be chelated in order to get better absorption. And, talking with Udo Erasmus about the oils that we are consuming, it's important how they are treated and stored. The storage and how the products are made is going to have a huge effect on how well they are absorbed into our system. Same with like the glutathione. And so just being a lot more aware of how I'm trying to get the nutrition into my body, trying to focus away from supplementation. How am I getting this in my diet? How can I get these oils through nuts and oil products that I might consume in my food rather than having to take a tablet at the end of the day.
I can't remember if it was said during that interview or if it was something we read when doing our research, but I do recall that if you take a fish oil supplement and you're burping up like fish all day long, that means that the oil actually has gone rancid and it's gone bad. So when you take a fish oil supplement, you shouldn't be burping it up all day long.
I mean, you want it to be getting absorbed, and if it's being burped up, it's not getting into your system. And so that's something else to consider. Those oils can go rancid and go rancid relatively quickly. And so how they are produced is a big issue.
Well, speaking of being produced, although I'm a huge advocate for creatine, I just came across an article that discussed that the reason why certain individuals, their GI tract kind of gets a little irritated when they take creatine is how the creatine's being extracted. If it's extracted through an acid wash, it's the acid that's upsetting the stomach. There's a specific type of creatine monohydrate that is extracted. Then this process is primarily used over in Germany, but they use more of like a water wash, and it's way less irritating on the stomach. And maybe that's a subject for another podcast episode on preparation of food and actual quality of products. I know right now, I don't know when this is going to be posted, but I know as we are recording this, one of the huge subjects that's going on right now with all the court cases is the products that we're actually given on our grocery store shelves, both in America and in Canada versus other countries that have the exact same products with way less ingredients. And if you look on the back of the other countries with the same product and the ingredients, they're natural ingredients. And if you look at the American version of the same food, it's like a chemistry set. And you can't even understand what it is that it's saying.
If you don't understand the ingredients on a product at the grocery store, put it back on the shelf and buy the product that has fewer ingredients to it. And we talked on the podcast as well. We've had Hannah on twice from True Diagnostic to talk about epigenetic testing. I'd love to learn a lot more about epigenetics and how all these different activities that we are doing are turning on or turning off our genes, turning up, turning down our genes that are impacting our health and how we're attempting to age well. And I know Dr. Anton brought up a little bit too about the epigenetics. I did have my epigenetics test done. It's probably one of the other things I'd say I learned and that I'm kind of doing to age well from the advice we received there. The True Age test is not cheap. It's cheaper if you subscribe to it for an entire year, where you would do a test every 3 months. In doing the test, I've learned I'm aging pretty well, kind of more complete epigenetics, organ testing, drawing a blank on the terminology for it, but it's their symphony age. Taking that, it kind of caught me off guard. I'm not aging as well according to that particular test in my musculoskeletal inflammation and my metabolism. But what it's telling me is that, okay, yeah, I'm training well. I mean, the other testing, my strength and that kind of stuff is all really at a younger level. The inflammation in my body needs to be addressed more effectively. And that'll be through diet, rest, and some of the other things I've been doing. And so it's got me focused more on what can I do that's a bit more anti-inflammatory for my body to help me age well. Anything else that came up to you as we talked about these 200 episodes of advice? What are we following and what advice has been good for us? I can't think of much advice from our guests that are saying, that's not really great advice.
No, I think all the advice that we've been getting is phenomenal. They kind of overlap with each other, right? We hear prioritize sleep, get on a sleep schedule, get on sleep hygiene. Although everyone has their expertise in nutrition, exercise, or sleep, One thing that overlaps, no matter what aspect or what road you're walking down in your life, gratitude and appreciation and living in the moment and not stressing about things that are so irrelevant continuously get brought up over and over. And I think that is a critical part of aging well, learning to be appreciative and count your blessings. It can change your mindset. If you're not motivated, it can help you be disciplined and you can overcome anything.
Yeah, I think that was partly us teaching that to the listeners. Maybe you learned it a little bit more, but it's the attitude of gratitude. Our gratitude with 2 T's has been something we have been encouraging others to follow as advice for aging well. And I think in summary, as we wrap up today's episode, in addition to having an attitude of gratitude with 2 T's, underscoring those 6 pillars we have stressed, and that's grown into 6 over the course of this year. When I originally started teaching it in pathophysiology and exercise, I started with 4, and then we've added sleep hygiene to that. And then, we've continued to add to it. If we want to age well, it's going to be exercise and increase our physical activity. That exercise should include a significant amount of strengthening exercise to maintain muscle mass. We want to eat a healthy diet that includes healthy fats, plenty of good quality protein, probably following more of a Mediterranean or Nordic style of diet. We want to maintain a healthy body composition. By that, we don't mean you have to have 6-pack abs, but we have talked significantly about the effects that too much body fat can have on our bodies and cause us to age more rapidly. Then we have sleep hygiene, getting to bed early, getting up early, having a regular sleep pattern, so that good sleep hygiene, not smoking. We didn't have to learn that through anybody the last 200 episodes, but not smoking. And then finally, the 6th that we've added based on a lot of our interviews has been this idea of purpose and social connectedness. And so we are framing that more of, in order to age well, you want to have purposeful social connections. Doing those 6 things, I think, are the big advice points that we have received and have had underscored over the course of these 200 episodes. If we do these things and we do them with gratitude with 2 T's, we will
Age well.
age well. So thanks to our listeners for participating in this advice, and hopefully you're taking this advice and you're all aging well. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast, and until next time, keep aging well.